After suffering their third straight loss to start the season, the Carolina Panthers are back at home to try and stop the losing skid that started under Bryce Young and was most recently extended by Andy Dalton in a winnable 37-27 defeat in the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. But with injuries already hitting some of the Panthers' top players, they are playing catch-up in the NFC South behind the Falcons, Saints, and Buccaneers. Today, the Vikings are in town, led by Kirk Cousins and a prolific passing game. But today will almost feel like a playoff game, with both teams eyeing a much-needed win. Will it be a day of desperation or disciplined decision-making that gets one of these teams over the hump? That'll be the measuring stick in this matchup, with both the Panthers and Vikings sitting at 0-3. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Carolina Pro Football Report on ADSN, here for Week 4 of NFL football. We're back here at Bank of America Stadium. I'm Kevin Tolbert, along with former Carolina Panther defensive tackle Colin Cole. This week, a little bit different. Bryce Young is back in the starting lineup. He will be calling the plays. He'll be leading this team today. But the question is this the right decision that Frank Reich made?
Well, Kevin, I always fall into the mindset that a veteran quarterback is definitely the way to go to kind of help those young guys get the opportunity to learn and grow and to continue to mend and heal and learn, right? But this Panthers staff has really shown that this is they're married to this situation, and Bryce Young has shown that he's definitely done a great job when he's had the opportunity to be kept upright. Overall, though, we saw Andy Dalton last week, and he led the offense tremendously. I feel like what I saw out of the offense overall was just smooth, consistent, and But obviously we got to go with the direction they got to go in.
So a lot of people excited. Obviously, Bryce Young is excited about Bryce Young 2.0. Also, offensive coordinator Thomas Brown excited this week. Let's hear what they had to say.
I think having an opportunity for every rep for him, like every player, is an opportunity to be able to grow and learn from your past experiences, whether it be good or bad. But I would say, honestly, yesterday probably felt like, and I told him this morning in the offensive unit meeting, that it was probably his best day this fall when it comes to not just the execution, because he's been really good when it comes to understanding the offense and being a fast processor, but the energy, the enthusiasm, stepping into a huddle, calling a play with conviction, coaching his guys up from a receiver standpoint, O-line up front, just kind of being the maestro, if you will, when it comes to his offensive was the best job he did, in my opinion, so far this year.
Just being able to be in a different perspective and being able to learn as much as I can from the sidelines. It was just a good perspective to have, and that's just something that's been a point of emphasis for us as a team. Obviously, not having the start we want, so we have to emphasize things. We have to improve, and urgency, control, making sure we're executing, and that starts in walkthrough, starts in practice. So that's really just been a point of emphasis for everyone. And as the quarterback and as a leader, I have to go in and make sure that I go and try to lead.
So now they've got Bryce Young back in the lineup, but obviously they have to keep this kid protected. That's something that they struggled with earlier in the first 2 games of the season because of the rotating door with the guard position. They seem to finally have that figured out. They started Calvin Throckmorton in Seattle, which seemed to be the switch right now to help better protect. Andy Dalton was able to capitalize a lot more than Bryce was in the past. How does the offensive line look, and what are the biggest things that they need to get right today?
I think the gentleman that you just mentioned, those guys got to step up, but we also got to see the young second-year player that was drafted. We got to see him step up at the left tackle position. That's obviously the most important position on the offensive line, protecting the quarterback's blind side. He struggled thus far, and we got to see him step up. He's got to be the anchor for this offensive line. That's what the coaching staff was thinking when they drafted him with such a high pick, and it's time for him to step it up. So all the other guys who have been in the rotating door, like you mentioned, those guys got to make sure they step it up. But he's been a pillar here since he was drafted, so hopefully he can emerge today and definitely take the next step.
Now the passing game seems to be taking some steps forward. Adam Thielen has done well. Last game, 11 catches, 145 yards. DJ Chark is coming into form since coming back from his hamstring injury, but he looks almost 100% right now. But where they're falling apart is in the run game. So today they'll likely have to depend on Chuba Hubbard to take a bulk of the snaps with some issues with Sanders. Where do they go with the run game?
It has to be running back by committee. You know, if Miles Sanders, who's been a scratch all week in practice, he's been limited all week, so we got to see if he's healthy enough to run today. Chuba Hubbard has been a stellar runner for this team for years now. He has to continue on that trend. But again, we got to bring it back to that offensive guys up the front. Those guys have to be more stout. They have to be more comfortable with what they're doing. They have to get after it. They have to get after this Minnesota Viking front, and they got to reestablish the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis, so that this passing game can have that to kind of alleviate and kind of help these quarterbacks and be more of something that this offense wants to be. They want to be able to run the ball. Frank Wright coming from Indianapolis when he had Jonathan Taylor, you know, that's what they did. They ran the ball, they pounded the ball, and they threw the ball out off of that. But that's what they want to emulate here, and they got work to do to get there.
And I'm sure that we talked to Charles Arbuckle, our other ADSN analyst. He'll want those tight ends to eat too.
Absolutely. It's always about the tight ends. We got to see Ian Thomas. We got to see him step up today, man. We got to see them utilize him. That's always the quarterback's safety blanket. We've seen it so many years with Greg Olsen being there for Cam Newton. So we got to see if they can reestablish that kind of connection here with Ian Thomas and the young Mr. Young.
So let's switch over to your favorite side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. These guys have been playing great of late, but they are now starting to be affected by the injury bug, just like the offense. Marquise Haynes has been out for a while, but recently Shaq Thompson goes down with the broken fibula. So he'll be out for most of the rest of the season, if not all of it. Still holding out hope for that. But then you also have J.C. Horn, who recently went down. So how do you rate this unit at this time, especially at the cornerback position, given the fact that they're going to have to find solutions to step up with the lack of J.C. Horn?
We talked about it earlier. C.J. Henderson has to be a mainstay. He's going to step up and be in the starting role with J.C. Horn down. He's going to have to be more stellar at that position. He's going to definitely have to step up against one of the top passing attacks with obviously one of the league's top receivers. So he's going to be matched up at times against Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
And that's a primetime matchup. And we already know that guy's done a tremendous job for that team. Also, Troy Hill, who we mentioned earlier, who we talked about earlier, has shown tremendous capability. And if things don't look the way that they wanted to look, we'll probably get an opportunity to play early in this game. So we'll see how the secondary matches up against a very talented offensive core for this Minnesota Vikings.
Now, Xavier Woods also still out with no timetable to get him back. So they'll be looking for another gentleman to step up. But he doesn't hit like a gentleman. Sam Franklin Jr., the special teams ace. He'll be getting the nod today at safety. But before we get into Sam Franklin, let's take a look at what makes him tick.
Every practice is the same for me. I come in, try to be more consistent. That's my biggest thing, and every day just being consistent, you know, showing growth, fixing the things that I messed up on the day before and try not to repeat those things. So every day I just come in with the mindset of being consistent and taking like a step closer to being perfect, even though like it's never gonna happen, but that's what we're shooting for, perfect. You know, it's a lot, you know, it put a lot on my plate. And, you know, I just don't want to let down the coaches and my teammates. So I just try to prepare as well as I can for every game. And then I also just try to make sure that I showed that I'm valuable to the team. So I just take whatever steps is needed, late nights, early mornings, you know. I'm a little bit of a funny guy, you know. I joke around a lot, you know. I'm kind of like the guy everybody likes to joke around with, whether it's me getting a joke on or me just making a joke with them. It's all love with me. I'm one of the guys that a lot of people can just come to and say pretty much anything to, and I'm gonna be cool with it. I'm not gonna look at you in this type of way. That's really how I try to be. I just try to be consistent and try to be the same person for everybody every day in and day out, because I never know who needs my energy. Like Dante says, you never know who needs your energy. So I'm close to a lot of guys. I'm not gonna just say one guy. Like Timo on the offensive side, he's one of my close friends. You know, we hang out from time to time outside. You'll catch me with Shaq. You'll catch me with DJ. It's a good feeling to know that I have the trust of my teammates. That's the biggest thing, and the trust of my coaches. And the outside is going to be what it is. One day they like you, one day they don't. So, I mean, it's great to hear it, but at the end of the day, the only thing I worry about is making sure that my teammates and my coaches can trust me. I pick everybody's brain. I pick everybody's brain. I didn't know how they think and how they lasting so long. Timo is a great guy to talk to. He plays in almost every game. You simply see him hurt. Shaq is a smart guy. He makes plays before they even happy. And DJ is just so mentally strong off of anything, like coming off of injuries, anything. He's just always the same guy. So, I mean, you pick a brain with anybody, I'm willing to listen. Probably one of my basketball coaches is named BJ Flash. He was a great mentor. He used to pick me and my cousin up, take us to basketball practice. He took us to state championship games. You know, just showing us a little bit more than what it was, you know, just always keeping us on our toes, putting us around better competition, and just telling us, like, it's okay to be great where you at, but in order to be the best, you gotta be the best everywhere.
Hey, 10 toes, I'ma never miss.
Sure, as long as if we get to the playoffs, then that's a great season. I'm not really a big stats guy. I come in and I try to just dominate any way I can. So it really doesn't really matter about the stats. I'm all about winning. That's what I love to do. I like to win. I don't play football for no accolades. The only accolade that I care about is being a champion. And that's all the thing that matters to me.
Running it back, running it back, running it back. Running it back, running it back. And that's running it back, running it back, running it back. Running it back, running it back, running it back.
So, Colin, Sam Franklin is one of those kind of guys that people love to root for. Undrafted. You were undrafted, but that's not a deal breaker for any NFL career.
Oftentimes, being undrafted puts that chip on a guy's shoulder. A guy like Sam Franklin, who played tremendous in college, who thought he was going to hear his name called on that during draft weekend, did not. However, he did not let that make his dreams dash. So, him over the last couple of years, you've seen the growth of him on special teams. On defense, I had the opportunity to see him a couple of years ago as I did the football internship here with the Carolina Panthers with Matt Rule's first year. So got to see a young rookie, Sam Franklin, work, and he's grown tremendously since his first year. So to see that continued growth is going to be a great opportunity for him. Obviously to get the opportunity to play, but you know, moving forward as an undrafted guy like you mentioned, I always root for those guys because they come with something a little bit extra, because we've always had to do a little bit extra to get on the field.
Now the hope is that we will have Frankie Louvu in the lineup today. He was questionable after being injured in the Seattle game, but we'll also look forward to see what Brian Burns is doing. He's now leading the team with 3 sacks. But they're going to have to pay this guy because he's starting, that tea is brewing, and that pot is about to start whistling.
Well, we saw what Nick Bosa got down there in San Francisco. So Brian Burns is definitely knocking on the door for this Panther team. If they want to keep him as a pillar for this defense, they got to step up to the plate, because if not, he's going to be highly sought after in free agency. So we'll see what this organization does. and moving forward.
Not a lot of history for these teams. This is only the 17th meeting in franchise history. The last time these two teams met was in October of 21 when the Vikings topped the Panthers 34-28 in overtime, led by Kirk Cousins' 2 overtime touchdown passes. Now Cousins threw for 373 yards and 3 touchdowns against the then league's top-ranked Panthers pass defense. And Dalvin Cook tossed in 140 yards and a score, and Adam Thielen, who was on the Vikings roster at the time, had a number of big catches, finishing with 11 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. And then there was Sam Darnold, finished 17 of 41 for 207 yards with a touchdown, but 2 turnovers. Now they nearly pulled off the comeback victory, but they fell short. And Chuba Hubbard, who we mentioned earlier, had 61 yards on 16 carries and a touchdown. Given that last matchup, it's very different this week because now Adam Thielen is a Carolina Panther. Some say he'll be looking for that revenge. Is this business, personal?
Who was something? Who was that? Yes, of course it's personal. For them to not bring him back as a veteran, he spent most of his career in Minnesota. Obviously, he feels like a little bit slighted and not being a part of that team, all things considered. But I think today he's going to definitely get his opportunities. He's going to definitely eat. I think you mentioned that earlier today. I think he's going to definitely eat today, and they're going to get the ball to him and give him the opportunity to do so. So I expect Adam Thielen to have a good game today.
Now let's flip the page to the Vikings. They come in 0-3, but they have this very, very prolific passing game. They're putting up yards. Eventually that's going to turn into wins for them. Hopefully not today, but what do you see in Kirk Cousins and this offensive unit?
Well, this offensive unit has been one of the tops over the last couple of years, and they've taken a little bit of a step backwards. Dalvin Cook leaving, and obviously with the New York Jets has been a bigger blow than they probably thought. But Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, Iowa Hawkeye, he just signed a huge contract earlier in the season. So, and they have another young rookie that they're looking to really make plays for him. So it's going to be a tremendous opportunity for this Panthers defense, this Panthers secondary, who's been banged up without J.C. Horn, to match up against one of the top receivers, quarterback duos, and to see where they are, especially on these skill positions.
Well, before we get any deeper into the Minnesota Vikings, let's hear from Carolina Panthers Spanish radio analyst Antonio Ramos.
Early season struggles for the Carolina Panthers have put them on a must-win game this Sunday as they try to avoid an 0-4 start for their 4th time in their franchise history, facing a winless Minnesota Vikings team. The Vikings are desperate to get their first win as well of the season, and that could be a negative factor that Carolina can take advantage of it. We all know how special Justin Jefferson is at the wide receiver position, and probably the most efficient way to stop him is putting pressure on quarterback Kirk Cousins. Vikings O-line has allowed at least 1 sack in 24% of the drives this season, and this Minnesota team has struggled as well protecting the football with a league high 7 fumbles in just 3 games. They average only 66 rushing yards per game. That's the 2nd worst number in the NFL. Running back Alexander Mattison looks a little frustrated with the lack of space in the line of scrimmage. They added Cam Akers via trade with the Rams as well, so they can get that running game going a little bit. We know they're a high-scoring team on offense that can move the chains, with their passing game, but defensively, they allowed the 6th highest points per game with 27 and 382 total yards per game to opponent teams. Veteran pass rusher Daniel Hunter looks like the only threat on that side of the ball. He's a great edge rusher. He has already 5 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss in the season, but be careful with, this dangerous defensive scheme with Brian Flores as their DC. They like the cover 0 a lot, putting heavy pressure packages on quarterbacks. Carolina and Bryce Young should be ready to deal with those blitz packages, and Frank Reich should help with the protection scheme as well with this very dangerous cover 0 that Brian Flores likes a lot. Panthers, they need to play with a different sense of urgency. get some rhythm early on offensively. Chuba Hubbard might be involved in the running game with Miles Sanders questionable. And of course, it's a special game for Adam Thielen. We all know after 9 years with the Vikings, he should have a big game after last week's performance in Seattle. My prediction, Carolina gets their first win of the season, 27-21.
So we touched on it a little bit earlier. The Vikings run game, not a fruitful thing for the Vikings this year, but the Panthers have suffered against the run this year. Where do we stand today with the Vikings, and what do the Panthers need to do to really clamp down on that?
Well, the Vikings do bring in their offensive line that they had a year ago, all 5 starters. So they definitely have the core group that was able to get Dalvin Cook and to rush for as many yards as he did last year. They're still seeking that. Kirk Cousins has had to take over the offense. Obviously, we know 0-3 start. He's had to throw a bit more than he wanted to. But they're going to try to come in today and reestablish that. They want to establish the run game against this offense, against this defense, this Shaq Thompson-less defense. And, guys like Frankie Louvu, guys like Brian Burns, Derek Brown, all these young guys, Tuttle, they all have to step up and they have to make plays both in the run game and pass game today.
Now, many thought that last week, had he been able to play, would have been a good game to get Bryce into because of the amount of yards that the Seattle defense gave up in the passing game. But this week, they'll have to face Brian Flores' cover zero, one of the most dangerous defenses in the league.
Yeah, so what makes cover zero so difficult is that defenses typically bring one additional person the offense can block, so that leaves a free runner. But what that also does is leaves man-to-man on all these skill players. So that gives an opportunity for the receivers to win their one-on-one matchups. We got to see guys like Adam Thielen step up, Thompson has to step up. Those guys have to step up and be able to create separation for Bryce Young or whoever, Andy Dalton, whoever's throwing the ball. These guys, if they're in the cover zero and man-to-man, they have to be able to create separation, off the line of scrimmage.
Well, you can't drive to a victory without the keys to the game. So key number one, I'll give that one. They have to get the win. 22 teams have made the playoffs after a 1-3 start since 1990. The odds of making the playoffs go down considerably after that. So they have to get that win. But for key number two, Colin?
Key number two is going to be how does this Panthers secondary match up against this Vikings offense skill positions. We know Justin Jefferson, like we mentioned, TJ Hawkinson. Those guys are guys that Kirk Cousins is going to go to and look to. How does Henderson step up? How do these guys step up against what is going to be what Kirk Cousins does well? Is throw the ball. What are they going to do secondary wise to be able to match up?
And key number three.
Key number three is this offensive line. Can we get back to the form of what we had at the end of last season? Can these guys establish a run and really stick with the run and be able to create, shorten the game just a little bit, as well as make it easier for the quarterback, right? I mean, the running game is what's the quarterback's best friend, and being able to stick the ball in the running back's stomach, take it out, and throw the ball deep or throw the ball over the linebacker's head to the tight end. So play action game is going to be huge, but they got to be able to establish a running game to do so.
Now the Panthers, obviously, we're looking for a win today, but they've also been doing some work off the field in the community. This is the start of October is the start of Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the league. The Carolina Panthers have done things all week to do that. The players wore patches to honor survivors on their practice uniforms this week. They'll also have some special ceremonies during the game to honor them, involving some honorary captains that they chose this week as well. And they'll also be handing out 10,000 of these bucket hats. So, Colin, this is our gift to you.
Hold on, that's 9,999 hats left because Kevin has one. So if you didn't get one, Kevin has one for you.
So, crucial catch. That's the initiative for the league this week to bring awareness for breast cancer this week. Well, that about wraps it up for this edition of the Carolina Pro Football Report on ADSN. I'm Kevin Tolbert along with Colin Cole here at Bank of America Stadium. We'll see you after the game.